First of all, I cannot thank enough Common Ground. I like to say my gratitude comes without saying as it goes without saying. I've come to Common Ground off and on for many years when I struggle. I've gone to VAALA events and volunteered. I love the space. VIF is amazing. You should go to the films. You have films from all over the world. I am so honored that I could be here today. This is my first time performing my poetry to an audience. Thank you everyone for the support. So I hope that you take these pieces and take what you feel speaks to you and leave the rest behind, as we all do as artists. We put stuff out there and hope something resonates with someone else. Oh, why thank you. I need like a pencil or something. All right. So my first piece is actually a speech that I wish I could have given to another Vietnamese cultural space that speaks to the issues of family and history. So I hope you enjoy it. We say that we are circling back to Vietnam's ancient history on nights like this. But I'd like to think that we are in fact spiraling forward, creating Vietnamese culture and heritage anew with every wisp of our Ao Dai coattails, every twist of our B-boy and B-girl stances, and every breath of every word we speak across languages. I was asked here tonight to tell my story, which is one story in an infinity of stories about Vietnamese community justice. I recently finished a research project on Vietnamese lesbian community organizing in Saigon. I wrote for one person in particular, my mother. My mother once told me that only white people could be gay. Being the snarky teenager that I was, I looked it up. 7 years and a few national awards later, the research is now online for anyone who was as hungry as I was for a slice of my history. A little known fact is that even though some Vietnamese say homosexuality is a Western disease, it was Westerners who first said that homosexuality was a Vietnamese disease. The most common derogatory slang term for Vietnamese is bede. This word comes from the French pederast, meaning an adult male who likes to have sex with teenagers, teen boys. Frenchmen in the 1800s said that Vietnamese women and prostitutes were so ugly that with blackened teeth from betel nut chewing, that this forced the French colonials into engaging in homosexuality under the influence of opium in Saigon opium dens. I know when I engage in homosexuality, I'm totally on high opium too. Just kidding. So on the one hand, the French colonials tried to conquer and divide the Vietnamese people through medical homophobia. And on the other hand, we Vietnamese and the diaspora cling to a false idea of sexual purity of our people. But the history of homosexuality in Vietnam does not start with the French. The mother goddess religion, or called Đạo Mẫu, is considered one of the oldest Vietnamese religions still practiced today. In Đạo Mẫu, male spiritual shamans, who are also often homosexually identified, will cross-dress in their religious healing work in order to channel the divine feminine. These shamans, called Dom Co, will still practice today, including temples that you may have gone to in San Jose. The 17th emperor of Vietnam, Emperor Khai Binh, was also known to share his bed nightly with a male servant and rarely with his 12 wives. In the privacy of the imperial palace, he is said to enjoy wearing women's clothes and jewelry. And last but not least, in the 1930s and 40s, the Vietnamese New Poetry movement featured many gay poets, including Xuân Diệu, who was once called the Prince of Vietnamese love poems. He alone wrote over 450 poems and short stories. Other gay Vietnamese writers in the New Poetry movement were Huy Cận, Quách Tấn, Hàn Mặc Tử, Trần Huy Liệu, Nguyễn Đức Chính, Tàn Đài, Tô Hoài, and Hồ Trưởng An. Gay Vietnamese are not just shadows of the past and eccentric histories of our ancestral land. We are your daughters and your sons. We are your mothers and your fathers. The histories that we share are 4,000 years old. May this night be not just about Vietnamese and Vietnamese American cultural preservation, but of spirited and lasting cultural transformation. So my father would talk a lot about destiny, and Yuen is this idea of like fate and destiny when you meet somebody that you you fall in love with. It's like you right? You've met your destiny, right? So this poem is a feeling that I had where I could capture that moment, just a moment in time where I felt like I met destiny. So it's called Star-Crossed. I'm sorry. Star-Crossed. Can I be your Orlando in a Shakespearean fantasy? You are my quiet oasis in a planetary escapade. I've been star-hopping on empty, reluctant to stay long at so many intergalactic diners. My face is prickly at 5 o'clock. I've lost count of all my light years spent hurling toward doom. A blackened story that has led me to here is roiling in my heart, coiling like a spring. I turn this rusty crank another notch with every forlorn message we exchange. I bend my arms with all my strength, holding my heart in place against a centripetal will. I'm not writing, I'm wishing. With every pen stroke is a clank on a twinkling star, passing in the window of my starcraft. Your scent is a body memory now. Your skin gleams in my eyes. Your lips, your mouth, a delectable kiss that fills me like the heat of a supernova. In so many ways, our romance is an exchange between star-crossed light rays that never knew we were bending around the same moon. We encounter ourselves in each other, living old times and first times in an effortless scene together. In a puff, I send you these words, hoping that they find their way in the blackness of time, filling space lost between us. A poem that I wrote after my experience doing community organizing in the Vietnamese LGBT spaces, and I wanted to write this in terms of capturing a slice of an experience of deep turmoil and complexity around the idea of age and family. So as we know in the Vietnamese community, we're very age hierarchical, and sometimes this idea of age gets appropriated and abused in different ways. So this poem doesn't capture all of the experiences that I had organizing, but it was something very important to me that I felt important to express in the community as we pass on a third generation in our Vietnamese community in the diaspora. It's called Tuổi Trẻ. I am not your fantasy. Youth in America is a fetish of your unrequited dreams turned into my nightmare. No, my life is not your fantasy of the wrongs of history made right. Gay youth was invented by the public administrators of the industry of AIDS. White collars selling the queer body for a secure job with the government, a 401k pension plan, medical, dental, vision, and don't forget, 2 weeks paid vacation. You praise these public funds trickling down like acid rain, burning my skin to the clean slate that you paint another rainbow, to confine another graffiti mural within the concrete walls of another gentrified building. I don't need your permission to be empowered. Youth is another palette for you to repaint your portrait, another vision of yourself with a little less gray and a little more pay. No, we are not a youth group. There are no youth here. You look at my face and you see a crib. If I had a beard or a baritone instead of a trumpet in my vocal cords and a stone in my eyes instead of fire, then maybe you'd hear me correctly. Maybe you'd hear me when I say, I'm actually almost 30 and the youngest in this youth group. They call us các em, tụi nó, when they blast us with hate. But are they really that different from some of us? This is a battleground for community you have no real connection to. You were never a gay Vit youth in America. Your false elevation, a blasphemy to the spirits of actual souls, youth who have died under the weight of that very label. You hold up a tower of hierarchies with pillars of age only to then save the children that are weighed under these pillars. And then the mainstream gays who think we need more youth in our contingents. No, you don't know a thing about Little Saigon. And no, I will not invite young souls to be trampled on by the entitled patriarchs of the fantasy of Vietnamese America. The youth are not our only allies. I've seen how young faces simply get slapped in these imaginary community families. My anger is not a symptom of green carbon dating. This fire burns inside me because age-old oppression. Adding years does not quench my flame. Age is the windstorm that breathes life into this hearth. After all, with age, I collect more reasons to cut through the profanities of people my age. History is fantasy. It's fetish. It's the palette you paint yourself in a better shade instead of the grays that you fade into behind the curtain of time. Ooh. All right, so my last piece is kind of just a breather that I experienced after a lot of experience of depression and sadness and hatred. So it's called Horizon. The world starts with one breath, one soul, everlasting in the eternal whirlwind of the cosmos. These breaths evaporate into the sky like tails of meteors trapped in God's fingertips, reaching across the sky, pointing to the heavens where we all return. How can I be anywhere else but in the horizon? Thank you.